Chapter 27. I fired up my digger and was off like a shot. Whoever it was had waited just long enough to get clear of the others and then had sprinted for the surface. Elena was still missing, as far as I knew, but there was no warning signal in her digger, so this couldn't be her. I actually shook with a sense of relief. The rogue digger was heading up slowly on an angle away from the camp and toward the surface near the lander's base. I figured whoever it was, he or she was making sure to be as quiet as possible in case the vibrations could be picked up. That gave me a short window to act. I gunned my engine and charted a path a mile or so ahead of the red beep. I flew in front of the digger's path and cut a hole at a 90-degree angle across the trajectory. I crisscrossed it again and again, leaving just a thin layer of rock between the different cuts. Then I tore down the wall with my borer. The end result was a giant air pocket, big enough to shut down the disruptor on the trader's digger, lying directly in its path. I turned off my engine and waited in the darkness. I didn't want to think about who it could be. I'd know soon enough. Elena was innocent. Or was she? What if the trader wasn't acting alone? What if Elena was a partner? No, definitely not. I was convinced of Fatima's innocence, and she was convinced of Elena's. If only I felt the same connection to Elena that I'd felt before the blackout. Then another thought hit me. What if the trader were working with Fatima, and she'd now set me up? The warning sensor started blinking again. The digger was getting closer. I reached back behind my seat and grabbed a wrench. Then I flipped open the hatch, stepped outside, flicked off my headlamp, and waited. I heard a loud buzzing and humming sound. It traveled from my toes to my feet and then my legs as the rock around me vibrated to the disruptor. I took a step backward. I didn't want to be too close to the blistering nose cone of the digger, especially not before the sensor turned it off. The vibrations actually grew calmer as the digger approached the air pocket. There was a flash of brilliant blue and a loud pop as the air around the cone exploded. It stung my eyes. Idiot. I realized how dumb I was to wait in the pitch black, leaving my eyes unprepared for the sudden brightness. I heard the digger screech to a halt as the disruptor shut off. The borer continued to spin, and the driver tried to go on through the other side. He or she hadn't seen me. I only had a short time before the boarder dug in deeply enough to reignite the disruptor. My eyes slowly adjusted to the light, and I walked forward, the wrench raised. The glow of the panel illuminated the face of the driver. The trader? Jimmy. He didn't see me yet. He was concentrating on trying to cut through the wall. I walked back to his engine block. It only took me a few seconds to loosen the two bolts I'd left intact to keep the hood closed. I reached in and yanked the power line, and the digger shut off. I flicked on my headlamp and walked back to the cockpit. I smashed the wrench down on my hatch. Jimmy turned to face me, his eyes wide with panic. "Get out!" I yelled. He shook his head. Coward, I thought. I got back in my digger and fired up the drill. I aimed it straight at Jimmy and gunned the engine. He raised his hands in front of his face as my digger flew at him. At the last second, I slammed on my brakes. The end of the bit spun menacingly an inch away from the hull. Jimmy lowered his hands. His eyes were still wide, and he was shaking. "Get out!" He nodded and opened his latch. I turned off my digger and got out again, still holding the wrench. "Hands on your head," I said. I didn't know if the landers had given him any weapons, and I didn't want to find out. Jimmy put his hands on his head. "Now on your knees," I said. Jimmy got down on his knees. "I didn't mean for Finn to get killed," he said, sobbing. "They wanted to capture him, capture you. It must have been an accident. It was, wasn't it?" I didn't say anything. Jimmy wanted to believe the landers were his friends. I'd let him for now. I kept the wrench ready in case he tried to escape. They said they would let us live if we'd stop attacking them. "And you believed them?" I said. "When did they tell you this?" "The first day I was on the lookout duty. I turned on my radio. I was bored. I flipped through the frequencies and heard them talking." He began to sob. "Christopher, I heard the voice of my father." I lowered the wrench, shocked. "Your father?" Jimmy nodded. "He was being ordered to talk over their radio. Tell the landers where the different ores were stored. He was alive." "So you tried to see him?" "Not at first. I couldn't believe it was true. But the next time I was on lookout duty, I heard his voice again. He was so weak, but I knew it was him." "What happened?" "That day, when I was supposed to take the pictures, I wanted to see him so badly. And then Elena gave me a perfect excuse. I broke through the surface and they started firing at me." "And you agreed to betray us to save your life." I was so angry. I raised the wrench again, ready to strike. He shook his head, more tears flowing. "No, it wasn't like that. How else could it be?" He was now full out sobbing. "They let me see him. He was in a cell, but he was alive. Then they said if I didn't help them, they'd kill him." He fell to the floor, his chest heaving uncontrollably. My hand faltered. A few seconds before, I'd been looking at a spy, a traitor, a murderer. Now I saw myself. A kid whose father had been taken away from him and then offered back. What would I have done? Would I have cooperated? Were there other survivors, I asked? I don't know. I don't think so. My father was in a cell alone. He was so beat up, burned, but he recognized me. He told me he loved me. Then he dragged me away and told me they just wanted us to stop attacking until they were done. Then they said they'd let us all live." He began crying again. "Did you work alone?" Jimmy nodded. "I gave them our radio frequency. I snuck away to my digger 2 nights ago and radioed them the plans for the attack and about the radiation bomb. That was all I told them. I didn't say where the camp was or anything else." I ran my hand over my face. Now what was I supposed to do? The Landers had obviously lied to him. Maybe it wasn't even his real father. Maybe it was. Maybe he'd wanted to believe so much that he convinced himself they were telling the truth. Jimmy stared at me. He got back on his knees. "I'm so sorry. Christopher, are you going to kill me?" I held the wrench limply at my side. "No." He stared at me, wiping tears and snot on his sleeve. Thank you. Go join the Landers. Go be with your father." I could hear both Elena's and Fatima's voices in my head, as well as Pavel's yelling at me. "What are you doing? He's going to betray us again. He'll tell them everything. You're giving them a digger." I ignored the voice. "I'm going to dismantle your disruptor first," I said. "You can tell them it was damaged." Jimmy started to stand up, nodding. Okay. Thank you, Christopher. Go stand over there, facing the wall, and put your hands back on your head," I motioned with the wrench. Jimmy nodded and walked over. I opened up the nose cone and quickly took out the disruptor's power source and drive mechanisms. I doubted the Landers had the technology here on Perseus to replace a digger, but I wasn't going to leave them anything they could use to try. Jimmy stayed as still as stone, facing the wall. He'd stopped crying, but he hadn't stopped shaking. "1 more minute," I said. He nodded, but didn't turn around. I took a seat in Jimmy's digger and deleted all the data from the locator. I was about to tear out the radio, but then I stopped. Instead, I changed the frequency. Then I got out. "Jimmy, it's time to go." He turned around, white as a ghost, shivering as if he had a fever. He took a step toward me, looked like he was going to shake my hand or maybe even hug me. I refused. "No," I said. "You didn't see what they did to Finn." He lowered his head. "It had to be an accident," he said to himself under his breath. I pointed at the cockpit. "Get in." Jimmy was breathing quickly. He took his seat and strapped himself in. "I won't tell them anything." I put my hand up and stopped him from lowering the hatch. "You're right. What you're going to do is tell me everything you see." Jimmy started. "What? How?" I pointed to his radio. He shook again. No, they'll hear me. They'll kill me. They'll know. No, they won't. I changed the frequency of the radios. You'll only be talking to me, and you are going to tell me everything you see, every detail, how many people you see, where the ship is. Keep talking until you have to get out, then shut off the radio. Do you understand? Jimmy nodded. I let go of the hatch, and Jimmy lowered and locked it. He turned on the digger and waited. I got in my digger and switched on the radio. Do you hear me? Yes, Jimmy said. Good. I'll go ahead and use my disruptor to burn a hole. I'll stop right before the surface and you will dig the rest of the way, okay? I stopped my digger just below the ground and then reversed. I watched as Jimmy passed me and headed for the surface. He didn't turn to look, but he started talking. I can see the surface. I'm breaking through. There's light. I turned off my microphone and listened. Okay, there's no one around. I'm going to level out. I'm not far from the ship. It's a big ship, the one that attacked us. There's just one. I don't see any guards around, but there are a lot of small vehicles, kind of like little tanks. They are carrying containers and are in a circle around the base of the ship. Okay, I'm on the level ground now, turning off my borer. I can see a few larger container vehicles way off to my right. You said be specific, so I'd say 200 yards directly to my right. They seem to be moving toward the ship, so away from the storage area. They must have built a new road or are just going off-road. There is a lot of dust. I don't see any lights on any of the other buildings, but it's bright. A lot of buildings are badly blasted, like they've been bombed. Okay, I'm now about 100 yards from the ship, and I'm slowing down. It's straight ahead. I'm opening my hatch and waving so I might get quieter. I could hear Jimmy's clothes rustling as he probably stood up and began waving. Then he yelled to the landers. They found out. I need help. I heard him sit back down. He began to whisper, Christopher, I'm not sure how much time I have before I have to stop talking. The ship is huge. It's right in the middle of the landing pad. It's resting on legs, and the hull is only about a yard or so off the ground. I still don't see anyone walking around. Wait, the gangplank is lowering. I'm about 50 yards away, so I'm going to stop. There are about 10 landers coming down. They're carrying something. A bag? Maybe There was a long silence, and I heard Jimmy gasp. When he spoke again, his voice was shaken even more than before. It's my father. Oh my Christopher, it's my father. They're dragging him down the gangplank. He's not moving. No. They lied, Christopher. They lied. I could hear Jimmy pounding his fist against the console. It sounded like thunder in my cockpit. I turned my microphone on. Jimmy, you've got to get out of there. He didn't answer me. Instead, he cursed and pounded the console again. I heard his engine roar. Ah! I couldn't see, but I could tell he was driving straight for the landers. There were loud cracks and explosions, and then there was nothing.